Tell us about your process in becoming a judge. What did it take for you to get here?
Well, the process begins for everyone at some point after you've practiced law for 10 years. So you have to have at least 10 years of practice. And it's a pretty lengthy process in Massachusetts of appointment. So there's a decent amount of vetting that goes on after you submit an application. It's a very long, dramatic application. And after that, you get an interview, hopefully with the JNC, which is a group interview. And from that, you also get vetted by the JBC, the Joint Bar Council, and eventually get to the Governor's Council, the Governor's lawyer, and the Governor's desk himself for him or her to determine whether or not you're going to be nominated for the position. After that, the final step is the Governor's Council, which is an elected body of folks who actually decide whether you get to sit as a judge, and they confirm you. It basically mirrors the federal system, but here with state actors.
When did you know that you wanted to be on the bench? Is it something you always knew, or did you come about finding that about yourself being a lawyer?
I think it came about while I was practicing. So I really didn't have a plan from way back to go this route, but having practiced probably, I think it was about 15 years by the time I came on the bench, I wanted to do some different work and work in that way and work in a way that more so affected the overall jurisprudence in the state. So it was not too far before I applied that I really decided to do it.
What was it like when you found out that you had been nominated and then appointed, and who appointed you?
It was amazing and terrifying and surprising. Governor Deval Patrick appointed me to the Boston Municipal Court. I'm trying to think what year, 2009, and that was when I was 39. And then some years after that, I applied to this court, the Superior Court, and he was still the governor, and he also appointed me to that court.
Tell us about your experience. Did you ever feel isolated in a sense where there wasn't a lot of diversity, you know, when you walk into a courtroom, as far as like the role of people who are in the name of justice, right? People who are performing in the name of justice.
That I've had that feeling in certain courtrooms, in certain counties. It's not everywhere. I started off on the Boston Municipal Court, which I think seems to usually be at a better place in terms of diversity, and try to appoint and assign judges to the different courts within that, the different divisions within that court, based on some alignment with the community and some interest and alignment and affinity with those communities. And I think in those courts, it's really important because you're dealing so much more with the public directly, sometimes without lawyers at all. Coming on to this court, I have felt that more because I think we're not in as great a place in terms of diversity on the Superior Court, and it's a different type of work, but the experiences from county to county are really the same in terms of having a diverse population that we're serving, and that now on this court with just 2 black judges in particular, I feel that's too few. That's too few, and it's too few for the people we serve, for the demographics that we serve, and that we need more diversity of experience and perspective than just 2 of us. And that's not any particular person's fault, but I do hear that sometimes from litigants or defendants, or some comments that indicate an appreciation for seeing a judge who is not white in the Commonwealth. And it is not, what bothers me most about it, especially on the criminal side, is that the Superior Court handles the most serious of those cases. And no matter where you are and what you've done and how serious your matter is and what your ethnicity or race is, you are almost guaranteed to be in front of a white judge in Massachusetts on your criminal matter. And I don't think that's where we should be. And I think particularly in Massachusetts where I like being a part of the Commonwealth. I like working in the Commonwealth. I like this part of the country. I like the way people in this Commonwealth think about the future. And I think that we're slacking on this issue in a way that we should address, because so many people come through these courthouses for so many different things. And we should do a better job at making sure that not just in Lowell or Brockton, you might see someone who's not white. We should be making sure that that can happen in all the counties, in any county.
Why do you think, I know you say this is a problem that has many different branches. Why do you think there's such a lack of diversity that out of 80 plus seats, only 2 are black judges?
Well, since I've been on this court, which is about, I think this is my 6th year, a lot of things have happened. And that's why I think it's a combination of factors. We have had a lot of folks retire, and that includes judges of color. We've had several folks ascend to higher courts, and that includes judges of color. So several things have reduced our numbers on this particular court, and far be it from any kind of token or one-for-one replacement system. There's not that, obviously, and that has dwindled our numbers down to just 2 at this point. But in terms of why the retirements and people going to higher courts even has that effect on us, I think it's we're not paying enough attention to this issue. So beyond having committees that talk about bias and talk about inclusion, there has to be some real effort putting into recruiting lawyers of color into this. Many people who come on the bench, if you're coming on in your late 30s, your early 40s, your late 40s, you're basically usually taking a pay cut of some sort. And that's difficult for people with families and children and college-age kids and whatever else going on. It's a difficult pill to swallow to come and do this type of service for all of the grander reasons when you may be taking a pay cut. There are other reasons that there may be pipeline issues that I think we can work on. From everyone from the governor's office on down to sitting judges can be involved in that work. And we do programs, Mass Black Judges Conference, Mass Black Lawyers Association, both have worked in the past few years on putting at least one program together each year focused on minority lawyers applying to the bench, explaining the process to them, asking questions of judges of color in that setting. So I think there's starting to be more of a focus on it, but it's not the type of thing that happens by osmosis or because we're thinking about it. It really takes effort to make a place more diverse, and it takes effort on the part from top down, but it's got to start at the top.
And lastly, we got numbers from the governor's office, and they talk about that one of the challenges is not having enough applicants. Would you agree with that?
I can't agree or disagree, because the information that I have is not from the governor's office. I don't have access, or I'm not privy to those numbers in the same way. And the information I have is mostly anecdotal from people who I'm either asked about in due diligence, or people who may come to me and let me know that they've applied to the bench or are applying. So I don't have the statistics to debate any argument that there's not enough people in the pipeline. But whether it is the number of people in the pipeline, the number of people making it to each stage, or the number of folks who are eventually appointed, the effort that I think needs to go into making a place more diverse, and that includes the trial court, and that includes the superior court, is it's a lot of effort. It's massive effort. It's not just, well, we'll just see who applies and we'll go from there. I don't think most places, whether they are law firms, sports teams, whatever, any type of organization, I don't think it happens that way. It doesn't happen because we will it to be, because we want it to be that. It takes recruiting and effort. And then you have to be, even in that, meticulous about weeding out areas in which bias can play a role. So even with the appointment of judges and anyone else who works for the trial court, there are stages at which bias can play a role in that person or groups of people not being as successful as candidates for that. So it's hard to say that it is specifically because there are only 10 people in the pipeline, or even to say, okay, here's what happened to any one particular candidate. Of course, no one discusses that. But I do think that there's some combination between getting more people to apply and making their applications as tight and good as possible, and also an awareness and an openness and a desire on the part of the leadership to actually appoint people of color. And they have to be working in sync, those two ends of the issue. So yeah, I think a lot of times we have this debate about why a place isn't more diverse. And I think those are always the two opposite sides of the argument. One being, well, we need more minorities to apply, and the other being, well, people are applying, but they're not being hired or not being selected. And I think more conversations with the governor's office, more conversations with the JNC and other aspects and folks in the process can only help when we're talking about this subject, because it's not about what happened to any one particular judge or one particular candidate. It's about we are smart, we're jurists, we're lawyers, we can figure this out and write this, and not have our numbers be what they are. So I don't have a specific thing. If this person does that, we'll be diverse. It's not really like that. I think it's a group effort, but I don't think we can leave it at there's not enough people in the pipeline. I think it's more complicated than that. So whether or not people have been, in the governor's office, have been receptive to whether it's Mass Black Judges Conference or Mass Black Lawyers Association and any other groups that I'm not aware of who've reached out to them about this issue in particular. The answer to that is yes. The governor's office and whether it's his lawyer, the head of the JNC, they are always receptive to our coming and participating with us in these events, to our concerns about whether it's a pipeline issue or an appointment issue, our concern about the numbers in each court. We've had several conversations about that. So I don't think how receptive they are is an issue. I think being receptive and then seeing eye to eye on a point is something else. So we don't always agree about why things are happening or what to do, but we at least are able to put it on the table, sit down, have a full conversation about it. And I think that they take to heart any suggestions, recommendations, and complaints, especially from sitting judges. And getting to a point, though, at which we all agree and we can talk more specifically, that I think is a work in progress.
Do you think it would be appropriate for them to appoint a person of color who's a judge to help supervise the process, to maybe follow to track some applicants, to try to fast track some folks or something like that? Again, answer to yours.
I'm always in favor of an arrangement in which, particularly something like this, where we're trying to attract more diverse attorneys to apply to the bench and to actually make it through the process. I would absolutely be in favor of a judge of color who is helping with that aspect of the judicial nomination specifically. It doesn't mean that that person takes it over, but I think that when it comes to attacking issues of bias or lack of diversity, it is always helpful to have someone coming from the population that you're talking about to assist in that process. And so whether it's committees or the nomination process or anything else, I think that's really valuable and underutilized. The numbers in terms of the overall process, it's really about who's been elected and who's been appointed after elections. So it's a little different than the hiring, but there, it is not. I think that beginning level with the JNC being very diverse is a great asset to the process and sort of kicks it right off correctly, even if it's not diverse all the way through the process.